The grill is shot. The chairs are held together by optimism. And what happened to the rug? Sounds like your outdoor setup is not ready for patio season. Fix it all with Wayfair. Shop Wayfair for grills, rugs, furniture, and more. With 20 million 5-star reviews, room of choice delivery, and expert setup on qualifying orders, it's never been easier to do more for less. Get 10% off your first eligible purchase. Hurry to wayfair.com or download the app now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life, hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Hey now.
Hey now! Happy Friday, my friends. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. It is time for the Listener DMs episode. I've got some great messages and I've got some great audio that I'm going to play for you on this episode. This episode is going to be brought to you by The Caulking Store, thecaulkingstore.com. And you can find that link in the description of this episode. If you need caulking, go and see them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about them coming up. You're also going to hear from the Prime Minister on this episode. He is wrapping up his latest junket overseas. He went to the NATO meetings and then he went over to Saudi Arabia for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. And a bit more. So you're going to hear what the Prime Minister has to say, and I'm going to read your DMs as well. Before I get to that, it's been a great week. Thank you. Last summer, my download numbers dropped like a rock when there weren't as many people in town and commuting to work in their regular routine. But I'm happy to say this summer we are holding strong here on After 9. So that is good. And part of the reason for that is there's so many people sharing the pod. One of the nicest things you can do for me, and I think for our country, is help spread the word. There is other places that you can get reliable information from the... I'm not going to say I'm unbiased, but I'll at least declare my bias. And when you hear things on this pod, it's coming to you from the lens of a conservative. Now, when you watch the mainstream media news, chances are you're getting it from the lens of a liberal. You should have a little bit of balance. So to everyone who checks into After 9 and shares these episodes, I really, really appreciate that. I'm going to start off with some audio today, and it's going to be from the Prime Minister. He was meeting with reporters yesterday, and he answered some questions in Saudi Arabia.
The second is you have to be doing things differently. I mean, if you're a candidate, you have to improve. No, there are very few people who get up in the morning and think about Canada. I mean, that's the reality. And so making the country more attractive for investment, upping our ambition, the transformation, being with Canada means being with the rest of the world, so our trade agenda, and maybe I'm worried, I'm sorry, I'm going on, but we have free trade agreements with 1.5 billion consumers, if I can put it that way. We're going to double that this year. That makes Canada very attractive as not just a destination, but also a hub.
Interesting words there from the Prime Minister, but excuse me, let me play just one part of that for you one more time.
No, there are very few people who get up in the morning and think about Canada. I mean, that's the reality.
There's a lot of people who saw that video make the rounds like wildfire yesterday on social media, and they're pointing out the obvious. If Pierre Poilievre had said the exact same thing, very few people wake up thinking about Canada. People would shame the hell out of him. In particular, people on the left. They would cry foul for days about this. The media would be running it nonstop. The liberals would be using it in commercials. Hypocrisy, right? The Prime Minister says it, and nobody on the left seems to care. The reality is, the Prime Minister is right. We were not an attractive place to invest for a very long time. And whether or not we are now, we can totally debate that. But at the end of the day, we've got to do more here in Canada to make ourselves a destination. And so far, everything that's happened over the last 10 years, particularly under Justin Trudeau, has been anti-development. It's been very, very radical. It has been linked to crazy climate ideology. The Prime Minister knows the reality on the ground right now. There aren't a lot of people thinking about Canada when they've got a lump sum of money and they want to decide what to do with it. But again, the hypocrisy is crazy. The Prime Minister said that and not even questioned by the mainstream media. And again, ask yourself, what would happen if Pierre Poilievre had said the exact same thing? They would have climbed up one side of him and down the other. They would have been calling for him to resign. They would have said he's anti-Canadian. They would have said he's MAGA. Not a word from the mainstream media when Mark Carney does it. And that's part of the problem here in this country. We have a very, very biased media, and Canadians are not getting all the facts. That's why they may have come to some conclusions that a lot of us don't understand. Let me give you an example. Latest numbers out suggest 40% of Canadian manufacturing is either going to, has, or is seriously considering leaving Canada to set up in the United States. That is an absolutely insane number. Insane. That is like red alert, push the panic button. Holy crap, this is bad. Mark Carney is off to the worst start financially of any prime minister in over 60 years. His first year produced worse results than any prime minister in 60 years. Yet majority of the country supports him. Is it possible that maybe they wouldn't support him if they knew some basic facts and the media doesn't go out of their way to report a lot of those facts? There's a lot of people out there who are reasonable Canadians. They really just want our country to do well, and they don't understand how bad things are right now because that's not the depiction they're getting from watching the news. Let me get to a DM. Hey, Scott, I know I'm way too... Okay, so this one came in at the end of last week. I wonder if you could bring this up for your next Listener DMs episode. I want to help make parents and children and their friends aware. I've been seeing more and more people, passengers in vehicles, putting their feet up on the dashboard. I don't know if people don't realize how dangerous this is or if they just don't care. But I think that more awareness to how horrifying this can be in the event of a car accident would make things safer. Thanks, and keep up the great work. I love listening to your podcast daily. Okay, thank you very much for that, DM. That's a fine point. And to be honest, now that I think about it, I'm noticing it too. It seems to be a summertime thing. People putting their feet up on the dashboard, whether it's one leg or two. This is a very spot-on assessment. That is extremely dangerous behavior. If you get into a collision, and you know how a collision works, you stop suddenly. You're going to get thrown forward, then you're going to get thrown backwards. Those knees are going to go right into your chest and completely cave it, or they're going to go into your head, and well, who knows what's going to happen to your head after you take two knees to it at that speed. I think it's very dangerous. Maybe it's more comfortable for some. I don't know, but please don't put your feet up on the dashboard. That is just probably not a good idea. Let's do back-to-back DMs here. This one is from Jorge. Scott, have the Leafs won you back yet? Thank you for that. I quit the Maple Leafs last year. I gave up on them. This whole season, I didn't retweet them. I didn't pay attention to or engage with their social media. I didn't watch them, and I didn't care. And I got to tell you, as a lifelong Toronto Maple Leafs fan, that was a very liberating experience to not care. You know, there was a lot of years when I would wake up and find out, we got blown out by 6 goals to a crappy team on the West Coast, and I'd be in a miserable mood. When you stop caring, or you lower your level of caring to the level that management seems to be at, it actually is a great existence. I had a pretty calm winter, and that did wonderful things for my mental health. But the Leafs have done some interesting things. They've fired a lot of people that I think were dead weight. Fans have had enough, Toronto Maple Leafs. They want to see some success. They want hope that better times are on the way. And it doesn't matter who you are or what your resume is. If you can't produce the results, we got to replace you with someone who can. That's the end of it. The Leafs, that number 1 pick, was it McKenna? That's an interesting one. I'm a little bit more interested. Some of the players I'm hearing are going to get traded. That makes me a little more interested as well. Will Austin Matthews be back and have what he needs to have another successful or even maybe career year? Well, I sure hope so. That would be great. But I want to see some progress. I'm not ready to jump back in on the Leafs. I have no doubt they're going to be better this year than they were last year, just with the changes I've seen so far. There's no reason to think they won't be better. And let's face it, they really couldn't do any worse. Let's see what they do. I'm not jumping back in yet, but I'm keeping my options open. How about that? That's a great message, Jorge. Thank you. Another one from the Prime Minister yesterday over in Saudi Arabia.
Mr. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. You've been spending a lot of time with Donald Trump. You had a long conversation with him on the phone at NATO. Big thumbs up. The cameras caught you doing that. One thing we've heard from the Americans is that if there's going to be a breakthrough on trade, it needs to happen at the leaders' level. So do you think you've made any progress with the president when it comes to trade?
I'll keep you posted.
On the Gordie Howe Bridge, the U.S. ambassador has said that there are two issues the Americans have: control of the bridge and tolls. They want more money sooner. Are you willing to renegotiate the current agreement to make sure the bridge opens?
I think we're willing to clarify aspects of the current arrangements.
Wow. Mackenzie Gray, Global News. Very, very good questioning. Fair questioning. I think we all agree those are completely fair questions, but they were a little pointed. Look what happens with this prime minister, who apparently, well, it's not even really a rumor. I think it's all but confirmed at this point. He's quite the hothead, especially when the cameras aren't around. Listen to how his tone changed. You know, when you ask him a nice softball question, he turns into Churchill and starts rambling on and on and on with all these platitudes. Okay, well, when you ask him a tough question, that's what you get. Real short, snippy answers. Those were fair questions. If it's at the leaders level, what's the status of negotiations with Trump? You just spent a couple of days with him, and you had a long conversation with him on Sunday. What's going on? The Gordie Howe Bridge. Are you going to renegotiate this, or are you going to stand firm? Screw you. That's our bridge. You'll get paid when we're paid back from collecting the tolls for however long that takes. Those are fair questions to ask our prime minister, but wow, does he ever get mean when he doesn't like the question? And part of the reason I wanted you to hear that one is this. I talk a lot on this pod about the bias of the media. And in some cases, there are fairly conservative members of the mainstream media. You'd never know it, though. Everything favors the government because of the wage subsidies and the government subsidies that get poured into mainstream media. There's a lot of people who think they'll lose their job if they speak truth to power. Now, that's exactly the opposite of how the media is supposed to work, but that's how they feel. They feel like they're going to lose their job. They also feel like they're going to lose their access to the prime minister's office, and God, do they ever love these junkets. You know, Mackenzie Gray clearly on this trip, I'll bet you he had a fantastic few days. He was over in Turkey, little bit of work to do, nice lavish dinners. They probably stayed at a great hotel, moves around the city with a motorcade, flies direct from Ottawa. It's probably great. And then a little junket in Saudi Arabia before you come home. That's awesome. They don't want to lose that perk. That's why there aren't more reporters questioning the prime minister like Mackenzie did right there. Next DM. This one is from Brandon. Hey, Scott, do you think Canada is cooked? First point. You can almost hear Carney saying this, right? Hey, Scott, do you think Canada is cooked? First point. Do you, think we will have an election before Carney's term is up? Second point. Love, the podcast. Final point. LOL. Brandon, that's pretty spot on. You should run that through one of those AI voice changers. Those things are pretty good, and I'll bet you that would sound like something the Prime Minister would ask. Is Canada cooked? No, we're not cooked. Things are bad right now, and part of the thing that Canadians have to start acknowledging is how bad they are. The economy is in shambles. We're in a recession. The new jobs numbers came out, and while the mainstream media is pointing to the headline, 18,000 new jobs created, well, Ontario, or was it 18? I don't know. Ontario lost jobs. That's not good news. That's part of the economic engine of Canada. Full-time jobs, there were only 600 of them. 600. The rest were all part-time and seasonal. So, you know, if we're counting people who got jobs, I don't know, taking tickets at Toronto Stadium for the World Cup as employment, okay, then God help us when the World Cup is over and those August jobs numbers come out, because that's not going to be very good at all. I think we need to take a fresh look at where we're at as a country. Seems like we've got wild ambitions that once they all come to fruition, yeah, I'm sure that we'll be in a slightly better place, maybe a way better place. But right now, things are bad, and we are spending money at an alarming rate. We've got a middle class that is drowning in debt and can't keep up with the current status of cost of living here in Canada. We've got immigration that is out of control, and the majority of Canadians realize it and want something done about it. Then we've got a government that comes out and says, we're working on it. We fixed it. And the media won't even fact check them on it. Just takes their word for it. There's a lot of people who don't have an accurate picture of what's happening in the country. It's no fault of their own. That's part of the reason that podcasts are so important. Let's get to another one from the Prime Minister, taking a question from the media.
Hi there, Thomas Hill from Bloomberg. Based on your discussions today, what Canadian sectors and assets would you envision Saudi investors and businesses investing in? And what did they particularly express interests in?
There's a broad range, and I would say that these interests go in both directions. But certainly in energy, there's interest in energy, and that's the full range in terms of commercial partnerships from LNG through to renewable and the nuclear end of the spectrum. The mining, there's a strong interest in mining. That's more inbound here, given the ambitions that are there. Conventional infrastructure more broadly is there as well. And look, this is not you see it in some of the agreements today. Niagara University, as an example, Niagara College. There is great interest in building those educational ties. Final. Elements of AI. There's very ambitious building the AI stack here, but when you move up into the agentic layer and beyond, there's very strong interest.
So there's strong interest, but you can't say anything specific at all. Not any of the projects that we're working on here in Canada. What about our new sovereign wealth fund? Are they interested in donating to that? I don't understand why the Prime Minister is allowed to brag about all of this. This was this great trip, and we met with all these people, and there's tons of interest. But when you ask him what interest, nothing, just generic stuff. We talked about AI. We talked about education. I have a feeling that is tied to more foreign students coming. Get ready for that. Hey, listen, our leaders are gaslighting us. I mean, they should be being asked tough questions. We should call them out when they make broad statements. And when they can't give specifics, we should really question why. Let me get to, I want to talk about the sponsor. Sponsorship is now available on Scott Fox After 9. I almost started this last year, but it wasn't the right time. But now I am jumping right in, and the caulking store is stepping up first. Reminder to anyone looking for quality sealants, good caulk is hard to find. The box stores may be bigger. Bigger is not always better. I think everyone understands that. The wrong sealant, if you get it, it can be expensive. The repair costs are expensive, and expensive is expensive. The caulking store is going to help you find the right professional grade sealant for less. The caulking store has all the top brands: Pecora, Tremco, Suprema, Nuco, and more. The caulking store also carries the right tools for the job, but not just any tools, nothing but the top performance brands like Ferrinox, a Canadian tool manufacturer. Whether you are a master builder, contractor, or a DIY weekend warrior, you will get reliable advice from knowledgeable people, not somebody in an apron who's reading the label in front of you for the very first time. They are Canadian owned and operated. Satisfaction is sealed. The Caulking Store. You can visit them online at thecaulkingstore.com or go and see them in person. Real nice people. They are in Mississauga at the border of Etobicoke and conveniently off Renforth and the 401. Lowest price guaranteed. They offer a senior's discount. They've got contractor pricing and fast and reliable delivery. Thanks to the Caulking Store for being on this episode. Next one. This one is anonymous. Scott, the Liberals never have and never will care about middle-class Canadians. They only lift a finger when they're hurting in the polls. Their solution is always handouts, and it's never enough. I hope Carney hears this. Stop spending money on Ukraine. We have had enough. All right, thank you for that. Personally, I can't see it any other way. There's absolutely no evidence that this government cares about middle-class Canadians because they do nothing but make the cost of living more expensive in this country. Job one right now should be making sure that we have a secure and thriving and viable middle class. Household debt numbers, absolutely shocking. The amount of mortgage delinquencies, these are all huge red flags, and no one in government seems to care. They said, oh, we'll cut your taxes because Pierre's promising to cut your taxes, so we'll cut your taxes too. Well, everybody that is going to get the tax cut has now seen that tax cut. Did it change your life in any way? Did it make things easier for you? What about this new enhanced grocery benefit? Not a lot of people got it. It's amazing how many people I've talked to that didn't get a penny or got way less than they were expecting. But it was only, what, $100, maybe a little bit more? Did it make that big a difference to you? Did it solve your problems? Well, if it didn't, then they need to go further with those tax cuts. The government will just stroke a check and hope that when you get that check and go out and enjoy yourself spending money on whatever it is you're buying with it, that you remember to vote Liberal in the next election. I don't know. It seems kind of counterintuitive to me. We would be paying a lot less in taxes right now had Canadians voted for a Conservative government last year. That's a real good DM, though. Oh, and stop spending money on Ukraine. We have had enough. That was the last line in that one. Yeah, they just gave another $900 million to Ukraine. I'm not going to debate with anybody the worthiness of Ukraine as a cause. The Liberals say we got to do it because we've got to help them stand up to the Russians. Okay, fine, but I mean, I don't donate to charity in my house when money is tight because I need that money in my house. That's got to pay my bills. I don't know why the country would be any different. We've got a massive, massive deficit and a debt that is growing by the minute. We shouldn't be handing out money to anybody under any circumstances, particularly when there's other countries out there that are perfectly capable of stepping up to help out Ukraine with whatever they need. You know what we can offer Ukraine? Moral support. We can offer them well wishes. We can offer them thoughts and prayers. We can offer them a lot. But sending them over cash, printing money to send it overseas to them when we've got a record number of Canadians lined up at food banks, I just don't think that that's responsible. How can we do that? I mean, there's too many Canadians suffering here. Why are we trying to take care of people in other countries? And it doesn't matter if we're talking about Ukraine or any other country. We're broke. We're not able to help right now. I feel bad when I got to tell somebody who comes and knocks on my door and wants me to donate to, I don't know, this cause or that cause. They're building a library here or a kids' orphanage over there. Yeah, I'd love to help out. I sympathize with the cause. I just can't do it right now. I can't spend that money because my family needs that money. The country is no different. Think of it that way. Yesterday in Ottawa, there was a news conference, and it was a bunch of people who have received injuries from the COVID vaccine. And part of the reason I want to play this is because there's so many people in the mainstream media that are not interested in covering this story. They want to pretend it doesn't exist, or they want to shame and belittle the people who were at this news conference yesterday, claiming they're all a bunch of kooks. I don't think these people are kooks at all. Listen to some of this.
As a result of my vaccine injury, I was forced into medical retirement at just 46 years old. A career that I loved ended abruptly with no opportunity to choose when or how it would end. These conditions are dynamic, they're evolving, and they're not well understood. This journey ultimately led me to the United States in 2023 and again in 2024 in search of private medical care, specialized diagnostics, selling my dental practice, crowdfunding, and eventually brain surgery with a biopsy to relieve brain compression. $148,000 for the brain surgery alone. No one in Canada would help me. They would see the onset of my injury and reject the referrals. Since then, I've been diagnosed with numerous neurological and immune-mediated conditions, and it would take years of self-advocacy to be seen. These conditions continue to progress rapidly, as they do for many Canadians across this country, and without early recognition and medical care, the prognosis is poor. We are still living with the consequences of the past 6 years. The exhaustion, the division, the distrust, the damage that never truly healed. There has been no acknowledgement, no meaningful support, no medical care where promised, no accountability. A society that refuses to learn from its past eventually relives what it failed to confront. I live with vision loss, nerve damage, loss of feelings throughout my face and my limbs, and ongoing white matter brain lesions. I experience difficulty maintaining upright position, balance impairment, and relentless neurological pain.
That's just a little bit of what she had to say. There's a link between the injuries that have led to all of that, caused her to sell her dentistry career and basically retire at just 46. She had to pay $148,000 for brain surgery in America because Canadian doctors, they didn't want to deal with it. Is this a COVID vaccine injury? Ugh, I'm not touching it. That's how bad this is. The media's not covering this. How many other people received an injury from their COVID vaccine? I want to know that. How badly did they suffer? How are we compensating them? Those are fair questions to ask, and nobody should be able to look back at that time and say that what was done was perfectly reasonable. They rushed that vaccine through. There's a lot of really, really questionable decisions that were made, particularly coming from public health and the medical community. Well, now we're dealing with the aftermath. Clearly, there are people who have suffered vaccine injuries. We have an obligation as a country to take care of those Canadians. They did what we told them to do. Get the shot. Stop the spread. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Remember all that nonsense? All of that. We forced it on people. People lost their jobs because they wanted a little more time, because they weren't 100% sure about this new vaccine with new technology that the government insists you've got to take, or you can't go to a movie theater, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't get on a plane or a train, all of that. That's what we did to people. We put them in a position where they felt like they had to take the shot. And now some people are suffering serious injuries. I think they're owed compensation. The media won't take them seriously. What's it going to take for them to acknowledge there are Canadians who did receive vaccine injuries, and that's newsworthy? These are Canadians who did what we asked them to do. They got the shot, and they're suffering because of it. This should be a story that no Canadian is afraid to talk about. Next DM. Listening to your pod. For the last year, our Rogers radio station building, KISS and Q92, they are now all out of Toronto. My friend works in sales at Rogers, and she is still local, and 2 other people, but they all work from home. We only have a country channel now in Timmins that is local, used to be Moose FM, and our local news. I rely on 2 local guys who do Facebook Lives to keep us up to date on community events. Robin, thank you for that. Yesterday, I did talk a lot about the media landscape. I talked a lot about what Rogers did in laying off or firing, essentially, all of those incredible broadcasters and just shutting down 6 radio stations. And not just shutting down 6 radio stations, shutting down 6 sources of local news in 6 communities across Canada. I don't understand how they were doing so badly. Ratings weren't bad. They had advertisers, and they probably could have had more if they invested just a little more time and effort into selling it and properly programming those radio stations. A lot of the programming was coming out of Toronto and Vancouver anyway. I don't understand how they were losing money. I think they just didn't want to deal with AM radio anymore. Well, just shutting it down isn't the responsible thing to do. There's Canadians that rely on radio, local radio. You know, there's people who get their emergency alerts from the radio. That's how they get their local news. And Rogers just said, screw it, we're shutting it down. Radio is still profitable. Radio consumption is approaching record levels for this decade. People are using radio. They're listening to radio. It's a smart buy from an advertising perspective. What Rogers did was a complete disservice to broadcasting. I firmly believe Rogers should be ordered. Put those damn radio stations back on the air exactly the way they were. Bring back your people with an apology, and you're not shutting it down. You can get out of running that radio station when we find someone else who's willing to take it over. And at this point, you're not selling it. We're just going to determine who's best, and you're going to give it to them because you tried this stunt to just shut off the transmitter. And by the way, if you don't comply, we're going to pull your very lucrative FM radio licenses. Well, they wouldn't like that very much, would they? We need to have a broadcast system that is reliable and responsibly managed. I have a lot of ideas. If anyone in Ottawa wants to talk about this, I'd love to talk to you about it. There's some very simple, common sense things that we can do. Very simple, that would make the broadcast system a lot stronger and would incentivize local, private ownership. That's part of the way that we get a diversity of news voices in our communities. Next DM. Hey, Scott, building off... Oh, this is from Allie. Hey, Scott, building off my question from last week about the rigged media playground, if mainstream media news won't give us a fair shake, the job falls on us to wake people up. But arguing with people who only watch legacy media usually hits a brick wall. Since asking questions is the best way to get people to actually think, what do you think are the best, most effective questions we can ask our friends, family, or coworkers to plant a seed of doubt and make them question the media narrative that they're being fed? Ooh, boy, Ali, that's a loaded question. Although one thing in particular that I want to agree with you on is something that I find very effective when I'm talking to people is I ask them to assess the situation themselves. You know, when you just sit and watch the news, you consume it, you consume their bias, you consume their narrative, you just accept that it's fact because it was on TV and it was on the news and the news wouldn't lie. When you ask people to reflect themselves and make them answer a question, I think that that's a very, very effective way at helping people to start to realize that things are not going very well. You want examples of questions? Okay, the first question I would ask somebody is your life better now than it was last year? Is your life better now than it was 5 years ago? Or is it getting worse? What about 10 years ago? Why? Ask them if their life is any better. The vast majority of Canadians, if they're being honest, are not going to be able to say, my life is better than it was last year, because nothing has changed from last year. You could ask them, do you think it's easier or harder today for a young family to buy a home than it was for you and your parents' generation? Do you think it's easier for young families now, easier for them to get into the housing market? Well, any reasonable person is going to say, no, there's far more barriers, not the least of which is cost. Having to save up for the down payment, and we pay ridiculous interest rates in this country. You could ask them, when was the last time you walked into a grocery store and thought, wow, prices are coming down? Again, any reasonable person is not going to be able to say that because prices aren't coming down. We've been promised at least 4 different times by this government they're going to fix the problem at the grocery store. And yet every month, inflation goes up at the grocery store. Ask them, if you were the Prime Minister for one day, what's the very first thing you'd change? Ask anybody that question. What's the first thing you would change if you just found yourself as Prime Minister of Canada? And then ask yourself why the government hasn't done it yet. Your idea is to change something because you think something is broken. Well, they must know it's broken. They've been in power for, 10, 11 years now. They broke it. If they haven't fixed it, it's because they don't want to. There's no other way to look at it. They could have done anything they wanted. They've had majority governments. They've had coalition governments with the NDP. They could have done anything they wanted. So whatever you in your head come up with as something that you got to do right now, ask yourself why this government hasn't done it. They have very different priorities for Canada than middle-class regular Canadians have for Canada. Let me get to another one from the Prime Minister. We're going back to Saudi Arabia.
Lecturing countries from afar is an ineffective strategy. It's satisfying, but it's ineffective. Engagement can be effective. It doesn't mean it's always effective. It doesn't mean it's decisive, but it can be effective. We care deeply about human rights. We care deeply about self-determination for nations. We care deeply about territorial integrity of nations. We care deeply about Canadian consular cases. I addressed a Canadian consular case in Ankara 2 days ago. And because I was with the president, it was addressed favorably. If I sat in Ottawa and pointed out all the things that we might not agree with what Turkey has done or is doing or might do, I wouldn't have had that conversation. I wouldn't have had that impact. That's a small example, but it is an example of a broader point.
That's actually a really interesting answer from the Prime Minister. You can tell he reflected a bit on that. Basically, what he's saying is we're not going to have any impact at improving the human rights in various countries that we would like to see have better human rights by sitting here in Canada and criticizing them. Now, if we can meet with them face to face and try and come up with a solution, well, that might be a little bit different. But just lecturing them from Canada is not going to have an impact. That's interesting. I think the Prime Minister is probably right about that, but that is not an excuse for him not addressing human rights issues and violations around the world. This is something that was always a cornerstone of Canadian foreign policy. We cared about human rights. And if there were human rights abuses happening around the world, then you were persona non grata. You were not going to deal with this Canadian government. I don't know where our policy on that is anymore. I don't know what we stand for anymore. You know, it used to be a principled stance, and whether you agree or disagree with it, it was something that Canada was famous for. I don't know if this Prime Minister subscribes to that ideology. I'm really not sure, but very interesting answer in that case anyway.
Being outside is good for us. It's that simple. And trails make it easy for us to walk, bike, and be active outside in our own backyards. On the trail, we see people moving, connecting with their communities, making the places where they live great. For 40 years, Rails to Trails Conservancy has led the way, creating trails across the country, making it safer and easier for everyone to get outside. They want you to get involved. Find your trail and start your journey today at railstotrails.org/iHeart and follow at Rails to Trails on social.
Let me get to another DM. This one is from Alex. Scott, first off, happy birthday. I hope you had a great time with your dad celebrating. Secondly, is there an update in your political aspirations? You mentioned at the beginning of the year when you announced that there would be some coming updates, and I haven't heard much in that regard. Also wondering how that process looks for a civilian. Maybe a great podcast topic in the future with municipal elections also coming out. Thank you for all that you do. Keep up the good fight. Alex, thank you for that. I'm going to talk a lot more about the municipal elections as they get closer. I said something about a year ago that has really resonated, and people mention this to me all the time. Next fall, we fire them all. And what I mean by that is if you live in a city that has got municipal elections coming up, and they've raised your taxes continuously since the last election, they've got to go. And I don't care how many photo ops they do, how much it seems like they care about the community. I don't care if they're a nice person. I don't care if their kid is on the same baseball team as your kid. I don't care about any of that. Any government that with a straight face raised your taxes even a penny in the last 4 years during a cost of living crisis doesn't deserve your vote in the next election. Full stop. If they raised your taxes, that means they don't care about you. If they raised your taxes, that means they care much, much, much more about all of the pet projects that they spent money on, the stupid stuff they spent money on. And all of us can agree, our cities have spent money on dumb stuff. The stuff they bought that was a good idea, they paid way too much for it. They're squandering our money, so they have to raise our taxes. And what value are you getting? I think my property taxes have gone up like 15% in 4 years or something like that. Well, I'm certainly not getting 15% better service. It's getting ridiculous. They're making home ownership, on top of incredibly high interest rates, they're making home ownership so unattainable and unaffordable with these insane property tax increases. They got to stop. If you live somewhere where the local mayor, and you know what? I have some friends that are mayors, and they have raised taxes. So I feel bad, because in a way, I'm kind of saying, don't vote for them. But if they raised your taxes, they don't deserve your vote. That's the defining issue for municipal. We want people who are going to responsibly manage our local city or our town or our whatever. If they raised your taxes, I don't think they're very responsible, or they're bad at math, or they can't do a budget. It's pretty simple. You can spend what you bring in. That's your budget. How about that? And if you need to bring in more money and your first thought is, well, I guess we're going to have to raise taxes. What did you consider cutting? What did you say, nope, we're not going to cut that, it's too important? If you want to earn the vote of people in your city, if you're a mayor who raised taxes, you go meet with your constituents and you say to them, I had to raise your taxes because I wouldn't cut this or because I wouldn't cut that. And be specific. What wasted money was there in the system? Be honest about that. Will you lower taxes? I think every municipality should be. And I know that they're all going to say, no, we need the money. You'd be stunned at the waste at City Hall in just about every city. The waste is insane. The amount of money they're spending on crazy stuff is nuts. The average Canadian, I think, would be shocked to find out how City Hall is spending their money. I think that if you live in a city that has a mayor and councillors that have raised your taxes in the last 4 years, they got to go. Or they owe you one hell of an explanation. And they should commit to you how much taxes are going up next year after they've got your vote. You know, some governments, they tried to keep the tax increase small this time around because it's an election year. Well, they shouldn't have gone up at all, period. They shouldn't have. If they did, but it was just a small increase, they're pandering. They're playing politics. They want your vote. Ask them, how much is it going to go up next year? Because they know. They already know how much it's going to have to go up to fund their nonsense. I wouldn't vote for any mayor that raised my taxes in a cost of living crisis when inflation is through the roof and people can't even afford to keep the heat and lights on and they can't afford a trip to the grocery store. Record numbers of people going to food banks, and these people are raising taxes. Even Carney and the premiers didn't raise taxes, but these municipal ones, they are monsters. It's crazy. The second part of the question, maybe it was actually the first part of the question, is there an update on your political aspirations? Listen, maybe I jumped the gun in telling you guys that I'm going to have an announcement soon because the process is going a heck of a lot slower than I want it to go. But what I will tell you, Alex, and anybody else who's interested is I've made the decision that now is the time. It's the right time in my life to do something that I've always wanted to do, and to do something where I know I can make a difference, where I know I can help Canadians, in particular, the only Canadians I care about, middle-class Canadians and those who are struggling. Those are the people I care about. So I have made the decision that I am ready to put my name on the ballot. It's quite the process, I'll tell you that. And once it's all said and done, I will totally be transparent with you guys about the process. But it's a little arduous. It is a hell of a lot of work, and not that I'm opposed to doing the work. It's just I already have a full-time job, and really what I'm trying to do here is take on an unpaid part-time job until there's an election. I'm going to be running. I am. And as soon as I can tell you guys more about that, I promise you that I will. I'm doing it for the right reasons, and there's a couple of interesting twists attached to that, and I'll save that until I get to the announcement. But there is going to be an event coming up, and there's going to be an announcement coming soon. The problem is I am at the mercy of other people at the moment, and I just can't formally say what it is I'm doing. There's some confidentiality involved here, which is fine. I respect that. But I swear, when I have the ability to do so, when I'm no longer bound by these non-disclosure agreements, I'm going to tell you guys everything. And I think it's going to be a good thing for Canada. Friends, that'll do it for me. Have an amazing weekend. There's only 8 of them left before Labor Day, so make every second count. Enjoy the weather, get outside, be with your family, friends, and loved ones, and enjoy our great country. Summer is the greatest season around, and you should enjoy every second of it, because it's not going to be long before we're dealing with snow squalls and slushy roads and boots and footprints everywhere and all the nonsense that goes with winter and the fun stuff too. Friends, have a great weekend. I'm going to leave you now with Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now. See you Monday. Oh.